Hey everybody, I'm Stefan for CG Plus, and in this second tutorial we are going to finish the project that Georgi started in 3ds Max, and basically we are going to add some final touches like color corrections, shiny lens flares and white streaks, and make it look like finished piece. So let's see what we've got from him. We have two renders, our beauty render, let's drop it into a new comp, and we have a alpha pass for the letters, and we are going to use it to cut out the letters from the background in order to make our life easier and composite the rest of the elements. So let's select the beauty pass, hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, and use the alpha pass as an alpha track matte for the beauty pass to cut out the letters, as you can see. And let's turn on all the layers, and the first thing that we are going to do is to add a bit of a motion blur here where the movement of the letters is very fast, because rendering motion blur in 3D application is a very heavy process. It takes a lot of time to render, and we decided to skip that step in 3D program and add the motion blur in post. So let's select our layer, come to Effect, Revision plugins, and we are going to use Real Smart Motion Blur, which is a great plugin. And as you can see, we have some nice motion blur, but the edges of our text right here are too sharp, and the reason for that is that the alpha matte doesn't have motion blur. So select the motion blur, Ctrl C to copy it, select the alpha matte, Ctrl V to paste, and also select our background and Ctrl V to paste. And as you can see, we have some really nice looking text with motion blur. And for the moment we are going to select these layers and hit F4 to review the effects switch and turn off the motion blur for these layers, because it will slow our work. And first we are going to create some shiny lens flares behind our text. So let's come to Layer, New Solid, doesn't matter what color, call it OF for optical flares, because that's the plugin we are going to use now. Select optical flares and let's open our window here. Let's come to the preset browser, open the white folder where are some really great presets here, and select the JJ preset. We are going to customize this preset because I don't like some of the elements used here. I don't like these iris elements, so we're going to hide them real quick because we don't want them. Because if we have so many elements, if we add 3 or 4 lens flares, like in our case, the scene will start to look messy with all those iris things. That's the reason I'm hiding these elements, and it already looks very good. So let's click OK, and this is our element. And let's come back for a second and see our glows. We have some really strong glow here, and come down to the glow controls and knock down the gamma to 2, and as you can see, increasing the gamma will spread the glow, decreasing the gamma will collapse it. So let's set it to 2 and hit OK, because we don't want such a strong glow. Let's put this layer behind our logo here, and let's see where we want our lens flares to be. For example, let's say around here we want a lens flare behind the C, right here, and we want it maybe here. And basically the idea is that the letters review, the lens flare shows up for a second and the letters hide it behind them while they move back. So let's set the lens flare around here maybe, and it's all about tweaking. So change the blending mode of the optical flares layer to screen, and this is our optical flares back 1. Let's duplicate this layer and put it on top of our logo. Come to foreground layers, and as a layer 1 choose our alpha, and what this does is helps the lens flare in front of our logo to obscure when the text is in front of it. And basically we are simulating that the logo reveals and hides the white from the lens flare, as you can see here. In this case we are going to delete this layer and fix our lens flare. Maybe put it right here, because it appears and hides after that, and again choose the foreground layer to our alpha, and as you can see the alpha layer helps a lot. And let's call this front 1. Let's add some more lens flares. Let's duplicate the back lens flare and maybe put it right here. Right here, because it will look great when the T block the white from this lens flare. And just duplicate it, put it on top and call it front 2, and again select the foreground layer, select our alpha layer, and as you can see it already starts to look great. Let's duplicate our back lens flare once again to add a final lens flare, maybe right here behind the Envato logo. Something like that, and rename it front 3, and again select the alpha pass. Okay, we are ready with the lens flares. So let's drop down the resolution to half in order to work faster, and turn on the motion blur for our layers here. Select the Envato alpha and the Envato logo, and just hit Ctrl Shift C to pre-compose and call it logo alpha. And as you can see, this ruins the effect that we are going for. Just select a new alpha pass, drop it behind everything and turn it off, and select the front layers of optical flares and just use this layer to block the lens flare white. After that we are going to create the cool white streaks moving around our logo. For this purpose let's create a new solid, and let's size it 700 by 700. We want a square. Hit OK. Select our mask, circular mask tool, double click to apply the mask on this layer, and let's come to layer, new, and create a white, a point white, and click OK. After that select the layer with the mask, hit M to reveal the mask path option, select it and hit Ctrl C and then select the white, hit P to review the position, come to the beginning of the composition hitting home, select the position and hit Ctrl V to paste. And now we can delete this white solid, and as you can see our white moves in a perfect circle, which is exactly what we want. And let's create a new object, come to layer new and choose new object, and let's rename it white null, make it a 3D null, and let's link the white to the new object. Come right here, hit R to review the rotation properties for the new object, and let's rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis, maybe 93, to get a bit of an angle. And as you can see, our white rotates around our wall. So let's start by creating the white streaks. Create a new solid and let's call it particles, and come to the solid settings and make the solid comp size. Come to effect and we are going to use trap code particular for the white streaks. Come to the emitter options and let's change the emitter type from point to white. But before doing that, let's come to our white and rename it emitter in order to pick up the particles and become the emitter. Change it to white, and as you can see our white emits the particles. And let's decrease all these numbers to 0 because we want a straight line of particles. And let's increase the particles per second to 1000 to fill the gaps in between them. And let's come to the particle and set the particle life to 2 seconds. We don't want and maybe 1.5, we want short white streaks. Also decrease the sphere feather to 25, decrease the size to 3, and come to size over width and use the ramp down preset, and come to the opacity over width and choose ramp down again, and maybe in this case increase the width to 2 seconds, and also decrease the opacity to 70% and change the color to a white bluish color like this, and change the transfer mode for the particles to screen. And let's close this, come to effect, stylize, and add some glow here, and let's change the colors of the glow to a bluish color, and change the glow colors from original to AB colors, increase the intensity to 3 and increase the radius to 20. And as you can see, we have some really beautiful glow here. And let's see how our scene starts to look. Hit F4 to toggle the transfer modes and change the transfer mode to screen to make it blend better with our scene. And let's see how our white looks. And if you look close, you will see that the white starts in front of the letters and rotates around behind the letters, and this is not what we want. But to show you better, let's come to the particular layer, let's open our particular options and come to visibility, and here we have a obscuration layer, and let's select our alpha pass, and we've got message that the obscuration layer should be a 3D layer. Change this to none and turn it into a 3D layer. Back to our particles and set the layer, and this will make, basically the idea is to make the white streaks look like they are behind the 3D text, and when they come in front, around, to be in front of the text. And to fix this, we are going to select our no, hit S to review the scale, and increase the scale something around 180 maybe. And let's sew the particles in the logo just to see how it looks. And as you can see, the white starts in front of our logo and turns back behind it, and this is not what we want. To fix that, select the no, hit R to review the rotation, and rotate the white on a z-axis to 180 degrees. And as you can see, our white comes from right to left, but that's not what we want, so change the X rotation to negative 93. Let's see if that works. Nope. So let's see. Maybe like so. Yes, I think this is our combination. So like so. Maybe not. Yes, this is exactly what we are going for. We want our white to start behind our logo and by rotating come in front of the logo. So we are going to duplicate the whites and let's duplicate this white, unlink the first white, and let's select the node, hit Shift P to review the position property and move it down a bit and increase the scale maybe to 205, just so they are not exactly the same, and maybe move it a bit. Again, duplicate it, unlink the bottom white, move it down and reduce the scale, maybe 185. Again, duplicate, unlink the bottom white, move it down, increase the scale maybe a bit more, duplicate, unlink, move it down and decrease the scale this time. And that's it. We are done with our white streaks. Let's collapse the new object, unlink the white, and let's select our whites, hit U to review the keyframes, and let's offset them, move a couple of frames, maybe 5 frames, and move the first white, move some more frames, and just randomly offset all the whites in order to get different looking white streaks. Maybe this one a bit more right here, and select all the whites, hit U to collapse the keyframes, and let's see how they look like. Great. Let's hit Ctrl Shift H to hide the layer controls, and let's create a new solid and call it Optical Flares Streaks, and let's apply optical flares to this layer. Open the options and clear all and select a glow element. Come to the gamma, and again, as you can see, if I increase the gamma it will spread out, and by decreasing the gamma I want a tiny little dot with a bit of a glow, so 0.6 looks great for me. hit OK, and as you can see here, we need to change the transfer mode of this layer to screen in order to get rid of the black and composite on top of everything. And also click this, and let's come to the positioning mode for the streaks optical flares layer and change the source type from 2D to track whites. This way they are a bit strong now, but I believe if we decrease the scale they will look great. And this completely makes Trapcode Wux plugin useless, because it's the same thing. As you can see, it's like a Wux. You can create amazing things with this plugin, and I prefer it. And also for the foreground layers, we will use the alpha pass to obscure the lens flares behind the text. And as you can see, we have our white streaks moving in front of our text, and they're a bit thick if you ask me, and I will decrease the size to 2.5, and maybe 2.5 is okay. Another thing that we are going to do is to add a bit of a glow on our logo. So let's sew the logo layer, hit Ctrl D to duplicate, change the transfer mode to screen, come to effect, blur and sharpen, and use fast blur to blur it out like 150 pixels, repeat edge pixels, or maybe change it to add. No, screen is okay. Decrease the opacity to 75% or 85, and maybe increase the blur radius to 250. It's all about tweaking, as you can see, to make it look good. And just apply a basic color correction to this logo. Come to effect, color correction levels, and just set the input black to 15 and maybe 20. Copy this and paste it to the layer above, just to add a bit of a contrast and make darker parts really dark. Let's unsew these layers to see how the whole thing looks, and let's decrease the scale of the lens flares behind the text, because we don't want such a strong whites, and in front also. So let's decrease the scale, and as you can see, we have these iris elements, and if you want, you can remove them by going to the options of the optical flares for each layer and remove them, but I'm not going to do that because I will lose a lot of time doing it. So let's decrease the scale to 55 maybe for each layer, again because the white is really strong now. Now it looks much better. Another thing that we are going to add is kind of a effect that represents the white coming from the edge of the screen. So create a new solid and let's call it optical flares left, and just copy the optical flares from this layer here, change the blending mode to screen, and this preset is great because if we take the lens flare and move it to the side, you will see that the dynamic triggering system works on this preset, and it's getting brighter and brighter by pushing it to the edge of the screen. So we want exactly this thing. Unsew this layer, change the scale to 100% because we want really strong white here, hide this layer for a second and let's see our whites. They are coming right here, so let's turn on this layer, position it here, change the brightness to 0 and set a keyframe, hit U to reveal the keyframes. Let's move 10 frames forward by hitting shift and page down, and let's set the brightness to 100 and 10 frames more to 0, and let's make this keyframe easy ease, keyframe assistant easy ease, and we have our effect here. And let's duplicate this layer and make the same thing on the right side. Just move the keyframes right here and move the lens flare here as well, just like that. And that's basically creating the white streaks with the lens flares and everything. But we have some more work here. We need to fade out the lens flares and the white streaks right before the end of our animation. So let's say right here we are going to start fading them. Come to the particles, hit T to review the opacity, set a keyframe, move 10 frames forward and set the opacity to 0. And let's select the optical flare streaks and just alt click and link it to the opacity of the particles. And as you can see, they fade away. And let's set this keyframe to easy ease, and let's move 5 frames forward and move it right here. And we are done with all the elements, so it's time for color correction. Let's create a new adjustment layer by hitting Ctrl Alt Y to create an adjustment layer, enter to rename it and call it CC for color correction. Come to the color correction, use tint to desaturate the whole thing a bit, because we don't want an oversaturated final sequence. And let's add a quick levels adjustment and set the input black to 15 and the input white to 250, and maybe set it to 25, no, 15 is okay. And create another adjustment layer and let's call it grain. Come to effect and noise and grain and add grain. Set the viewing mode from preview to final output. And as you can see, we've got a lot of grain, and this is not what we want. So let's change the resolution to full to see better what's going on here. And let's decrease the intensity to 0.3 and the size to 0.1 maybe. And we have this really subtle film looking grain. Also, we are going to create another adjustment layer and call it vignette, and select the ellipse mask tool, double click to apply it to the layer, and let's add a fast blur effect. You can add a lens blur, but it's too heavy to render, and for the sake of this tutorial I'm going to use the fast blur effect. Let's increase the blur radius to 50 and click the repeat edge pixels and subtract the mask to invert it. Hit F to reveal the feather options for the mask and set the feather to 225 maybe, just to soften the edges of our composition. and select this layer, come to effect, color correction, and again add a levels adjustment and set the input black to 40 maybe, or 30, just to darken a bit the edges of this composition, to focus on the logo here. And I think that's basically almost everything. Another thing you can do is to create a new solid, call it optical flares, and again apply optical flares, or just copy the effect from our previous layers, set the blending mode to screen, and let's center this in the center of our composition, and let's move it back behind our logo, and let's increase the scale to 100%, and we don't want to use the alpha pass to obscure our white, because we want the white. And come to effect, blur and sharpen, fast blur, and hit the repeat edge pixels checkbox and increase the blur radius to 200, just to add a bit of white behind our logo, and maybe reduce the opacity to 70%. That looks better, and I think that's everything. We are ready with this thing. Also, you can create a layer with dust particles before, in front and behind our logo, and use the lens blur to create some fancy looking out of focus dust particles. Another thing that I remembered now that I did in the preview when I did this project for first time, was to duplicate this layer, delete the fast blur effect, so this layer, and increase the opacity to 100%, come to trap coat and add a shine, change the transfer mode of the shine to screen, and for colorizing we are going to use the Heaven preset. It's a great preset, and set the ray length to 3 and set the boost white to 1 maybe, and set this layer behind our other layers, just to add kind of a volumetric whites behind our logo, that our lens flares represent the white, and the shine adds a really nice looking white rays. And also come to the shine and open the shimmer options. Let's sew the shine layer, and if you increase the amount, for example to 200, and set the detail to 100, you see that our white rays have much more detail now. And just keep increasing the numbers to see how it will look. And as you can see, this is too strong and ugly looking, but 300 looks great. And so this layer, and maybe if we try to change it to add screen, or add is too strong, but no, I think screen was better in my opinion. And again decrease the ray length to 2 maybe, we don't want such a strong white rays, and this is just a touch. And as you can see, the small details make the whole thing looks so great. So I think that's everything from me. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial and learned new things, and I really hope that in future we are going to create some more tutorials with Georgi to show you some really cool effects, and of course teach you how to integrate 3D with After Effects to create breathtaking animations. So once again, I'm Stefan for CG Tuts Plus, and we will see you next time.